Welcome back, this is Tucker. Let's talk weather. We have a little bit of everything this week, some getting a very early taste of fall, others feeling big time summer heat. Which side you're on, we'll talk about. And a new area of interest has emerged in the tropics, how legit this threat is, and what you should be thinking about now. Hey guys, happy to see you back here again, and if you're new, welcome, of course. And by the way, happy college football season to all who celebrate. You know me, I'm from Boston. I'm a big Penn State guy, but let me know where you're watching from, who your team is if you got one, and let's talk a little weather. And especially considering this is a long weekend and the start of September, you may be going out to games, you may have outdoor plans. This week's really up and down, and so we're going to get you prepared and make sure you're ready for the big range of weather outcomes occurring in the U.S. this week. Now, if you're coming back, you know I like to explain why the weather does what it does and not just throw a bunch of numbers at your face. So we're going to start by taking a look at the big picture here. And what I mean by that is we're looking at the air masses controlling our weather across North America. The blue colors indicating colder than normal air masses, the orange colors indicating warmer than normal air masses. And I'm going to put this in motion here. We're going to walk this through the end of August and into the start of September, which won't take long. Here we are, September 1st, 2nd. And what you're seeing is this cooler air mass, it's sort of spread out across the eastern U.S. And that's what's going to be in control for much of this first week of September, especially here in the central U.S. It's also going to be much warmer than normal up towards Alaska and in the northwestern portions of North America, not necessarily even the U.S., although it is going to be very warm in the western U.S. But what this is going to do here, this is actually an area of higher pressure. And as high pressure spins clockwise, it tries to pull everything out here in the Arctic down into the United States. See, this kind of looks like a football playbook, but that's what's going to happen. This colder air in the Arctic essentially is going to spill into the United States as a result. And as I move this to the first week of September, you see that door open, this little weakening here, and you see those darker blue colors spilling into the center of the country. That's exactly what's going on here. And as we take a look, I mean, look at how deep those blues get. As we take a look here, especially towards the middle and later days of this first week of September, it's going to be quite chilly. I mean, we're talking very October-like. We even have frost and freeze warnings in effect for parts of the north central U.S. Meanwhile, the Rockies, they kind of act as a wall here. And on the, in the Rockies, and especially to the west of the Rockies, this warmer air mass is really going to be controlling the weather, and summer is going to be abound. It's going to be actually very hot. The one odd place out here is actually New England, where temperatures may be quite normal, but for much of the central and eastern U.S., that colder air mass is in control, and even as I move this into the second week of September, while it does back off, I do expect those cooler than average temperatures at least are going to be around the eastern U.S., cooler than average to average, we'll call it. The warmer temps are likely to stay in the western U.S., but there is a bit of a turn as we get to the second week of September, and that is going to be where our pattern begins to shift again. But let's focus on this week and take it to some actual temperatures. You're looking at Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. You're seeing that highest heat emerge in the afternoons across the western U.S., and especially Tuesday. You got some high heat out there, and we're talking hundreds are possible into the Pacific Northwest, at least the desert regions. We got temps in the hundreds up along the entire west coast here in the valleys. Meanwhile, it's pretty comfortable across the rest of the United States here. We're talking 70s and some 80s, actually reasonably cool. Those are all 70s, those red colors you're seeing there. Very comfortable. But things change out there as we move into Wednesday, and that's where you're going to see our colder air mass begin to just dive south into the United States. These are high temperatures in the 50s and 60s you're seeing cut into the central U.S., and it's really going to make for a really stark contrast as we get towards the later days of this first week of September. Those are lows in the 40s and 30s, in fact, and you can still see here as we move this into Thursday. I mean, you may have highs in the 40s in parts of Michigan and Wisconsin, while we have highs in the hundreds in a lot of the West Coast. That's a huge contrast in temperatures. We'll also talk about how rain is involved there in just a moment, but I'm going to keep moving this forward, and you're looking at, again, lows that are going to be in the 40s and even 30s across a huge chunk of the United States, really everywhere except for the Rockies and West. And these days are going to be very hot west and on the cool side. Highs in the 60s we're talking about across a good chunk of the northern U.S. here into the later days of this first week of September. So you can see the contrast very clearly here, and it's going to be one that will continue to play out until we get towards about the middle of the second week of September. Now, interestingly, a lot of times with these colder air masses, you get a lot of rain, and you're going to see, as we take a look at our pattern this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there aren't any huge rain chances, though there will be some storminess across the central U.S., the southeastern U.S. as well. A couple storms that pop up in the Rockies, but high pressure keeps a lot of the East Coast dry here. Moving through, though, in towards the later days of the week, you're going to see this cold front come in. That's the leading edge of that colder air mass, and it will bring some rain to the north central U.S., although I'm not seeing any huge storm system, but it will be a bit rainy for a couple days out there as that front sweeps the country. And you can actually see here, again, here's your low pressure system. There, isn't that cool? There's your cold front, those storms in the back end, and your colder air coming right through here. Decent bit of rain possible on the East Coast as a result of this heading into your Thursday and Friday. But, as a whole, I'm not seeing any massive rainstorms. Everything you're seeing there, even if there's a lot of green, it moves fast. So all things considered, a pretty dry week with some downpours as the front comes in the east. And to put that into context here, you can see, we could use the rain out west. This drought, generally speaking, not going to get any better this week. And also seeing some drought conditions emerge in the northeast. It's not bad right now, but that's likely to make for some crunchier grass. Maybe a little bit brown in some of these spots. You're seeing the tan colors, but when you start to see these orange colors like out here show up, and we're seeing that in Maine, that's where the grass gets a little crunchier. So if you got sprinklers, run them. And keep your gardens watered, especially as we get towards the harvesting season here. By the way, guys, I'm a meteorologist. I will never hype the weather up here like a lot of people do on the internet. So if you're looking for a source that you can just trust with weather information, consider subscribing here. And on that note, let's take a look at the tropics. You can see our new potential area of development right there. I like that my yellow color matches theirs. They're giving it a 30% chance for development in the next 7 days. Now, that doesn't sound like a big chance, but let me explain why it's bigger than it really is. Now, I just said I'll never hype anything, and I won't, but this system does bear watching. Doesn't mean you need to be worried about it right now, but here's why that 30% chance is a little bigger than it leads on. And you'll see here, as we move this into September 1st, 2nd, some hints from our weather models suggest this is going to begin to develop. But, we're talking several days out here before it even has a chance to become a storm. See all these numbers clustered together? That means there's a very, very high chance that there will be something here. But we're looking at September 4th right now, and that's sort of getting towards the end of our week-long range. So basically, the reason it's only being given a 30% chance for development is because it's 30% in the next 7 days. Over the next 10 days, that's probably closer to about 70 or 80%, as this is going to be in very warm water. The wind shear is pretty weak, and it's very favorable for this to develop. You can see again our range of outcomes, each of those red numbers indicating where the center of the system may be. And as we look at this date, September 6th, the range actually isn't that wide yet. I'll also mention these blue numbers out here and the black lines around it. This is indicating an area of high pressure. Now, with high pressure where it is, there is some room for this to get a little bit farther north and sort of just cut through the outer edge of it. But more likely, this is going to continue moving west, sort of like we saw with Aaron, and at least make a pass by the U.S. So as I continue to push this forward, we're going to begin to see some divergence here. This is September 8th. Notice a lot of our red numbers sort of fell away. There will be some wind shear this storm encounters around the 7th and 8th, most likely, as it begins to fight our high pressure system a little bit. The question here is going to be, does our system get torn apart or does it survive? If it survives, and you can see some of our weather guidance suggests it will, there is the potential for a stronger storm to develop. And that's what these orange, basically bullseyes are here on our map. Now, we're talking September 11th and 12th here. We're a ways out. There's a lot that can happen between then and now, so I wouldn't be worried about this yet. But you can see at least the suggestion that this could, once it reaches sort of our critical point here, develop into a hurricane. And it has a few different paths it may take, but generally speaking, I don't believe this is a super high threat to the U.S. right now. However, it is something to watch, but do know impacts would not come until the 13th through 15th, at least the way it stands now. So don't let some random guys on the internet freak you out about a storm that is more than 2 weeks away at this time. That said, we'll be right here watching, so you can check back for legitimate updates with me. All right, guys, happy Labor Day weekend. I know you probably got plans, so I'm not going to take up all your time here. Hopefully the forecast is helpful, and if you have any questions, if you want a personal forecast for your backyard, just feel free to ask me in the comments. I'll do that for you here. In the meantime, enjoy your college football, enjoy the early fall or the lasting summer depending on where you live, and I'll see you right back here next time.